Welcome back to Ontario Cryptids. I'm so glad you're here for another episode. Today we're going to have some Dogman and Sasquatch encounters, so stay tuned. If you love hearing these mysterious encounters, don't forget to hit that like button, the subscribe button, and hit that notification bell so you'll never miss another episode. And if you have an encounter of your own, I'd love to hear about it. Send your stories to ontariocryptids@gmail.com and it might be featured in a future episode. Now sit back and relax and let's dive into this week's incredible encounter stories. We were on a Forest Service road with small mountains on both sides and a small stream on the right-hand side of the road in San Isabella National Forest. My father and I were in our truck turning a slight corner on the Forest Service road. When the headlights came around, they reflected off of something standing near a tree. We both seen the bright orange eyes and looked in that direction. It was still dark, so we only had the lights of our headlights. I saw the shape of a head and very broad and thick shoulders. It was near freezing with no campsites around us. The figure that I saw turned towards the stream. After that, we had driven past the area where it was standing. I asked my dad, "Did you see what I think I just saw?" He told me that the hairs on the back of his neck were standing up. We stopped a little further down the road to talk about it. I wanted to make sure that we both thought that it was a Bigfoot, so we both wrote down what we thought we saw. We both wrote Bigfoot. When the daylight came, we went back to the spot to look for any signs of Bigfoot or to see if we were mistaken. All what we found was a large rock out of place near what could have been a footprint. Creature's description. Its eyes were like that of a nocturnal animal due to the glow that we saw. It had a very large head and broad shoulders. It was larger than any normal man. It was dark outside, so I couldn't see any fine details. December 9th, 2004. BCTV Global News reported on the 6 o'clock news tonight that two women driving in the car on the Island Highway last night at 8:30 p.m. between Port Alberni and Tofino narrowly missed hitting a large Sasquatch that had stepped onto the roadway in front of them. According to the witness, the Sasquatch stood its ground directly in front of the vehicle until it became scared by other approaching cars and quickly ran into the forest on the other side of the road. This is the same area where there was a sighting by the Frank family in 2002. The women described the animal being covered in dark fur between 6 to 7 feet tall. They stated it looked more human-like than ape-like. The witness also stated that it was not a bear. Veteran Sasquatch investigator and biologist John Bindernagel did an interview for BCTV News showing various track castings he and his wife had found near Great Central Lake on Vancouver Island. He also mentioned that he believed it would be only a matter of time before Sasquatch is hit by a car and offering proof to the scientific community that North America's great ape does exist. Hey, I'm new here. I was scrolling the Dogman sub and someone asked how come there are no bones. It got me thinking about my own experience that I've never brought up to anyone. Back in 2015, I was deployed to Uganda. I lived in a small camp near Lake Victoria. It was on Uganda SF base. So it was pretty remote, and we had our own buildings. It was like an 8x8 room that was cut off from everyone else. Pretty nice, honestly, considering that you usually have it much worse on deployment. Anyways, one night I heard something outside my window. It was a very deep voice speaking a language that I couldn't understand. I wasn't alarmed at first because I figured it was one of our foreign national drivers walking the camp at night. I don't recall what time it was, but I usually went to sleep around midnight, so it was somewhere around 2 or 3 a.m. At first, I just heard movement and speaking. Then I heard sounds of a creature screaming in terror and pain, followed by sounds of flesh being torn, like chewing, less like chewing and more like consuming. And then I heard whatever it was leave. I couldn't tell you what I felt or thought at the time. It was as if I was in a brain fog and you just decided that it was some savage eating some animal alive. Ignorant, I know. A few days later, I heard some of the guys on camp talking to someone else, and he said, I heard somebody speaking, and then I heard this poor animal get torn apart. No one took him seriously. In hindsight, our food stores were raided a few times too. We figured it was once again a foreign national and just let it go. I didn't even speak to him about it for some reason, and I never brought it up to anyone. No clue why. Anyways, does anyone know of any cryptids that match this MO? I'm just curious. The voice sounded distant, but in hindsight, it was unusual. I doubt it was human. And the way that it ate that creature from clearly alive to consuming it in just minutes. I don't recall what the language sounded like because it was distant, as I said. There are something like 700 languages spoken in that country, so no leads there. Back in the 1960s, before he shipped out to Vietnam, my dad had an encounter while hunting. I remember him telling his story to a friend. His friend had told him that he heard something out in the woods behind his house. My dad then started to tell his story. While living up in Ketchikan, Alaska, he decided to get one last hunt in before leaving for the military. He said he was slowly driving down an old logging road when up ahead he stopped his truck, grabs his rifle and pack, and takes off down the road to the spot he saw the elk cross. He goes to the edge of the road and sees where the elk had gone down the steep hill and saw some of them starting to move up the next ridge. Taking out his binoculars, he started scanning the area to count how many elks he can see. As he's lying there on the ground scanning the next ridge, he catches something moving quickly from his left on the ridge across from him towards the elk. As he zeroes in on this thing, he realizes he is looking at the biggest wolf he has ever seen. He said he looked at it, and the size of this thing was massive. When it was at about his 10 o'clock, he said it stopped and went from 4 legs to standing on 2 legs. It reached up and put its hand against a tree it was now standing next to. It lifted its massive head in the air and began to sniff the air, looking around. He said that it seemed like in no time it picked up the scent, but it wasn't the elk's. It was his. The creature snapped its head in the direction of my dad and stared right at him. It showed its teeth and then dropped back down to all fours and started towards my dad. He said he lost sight of it when it got to the bottom of the ridge. So he grabbed his rifle and made sure it was loaded and started scoping the area below him. As he scanned back and forth, he caught sight of it again, and it was at the bottom of this hill below him, about 200 feet or so from my dad. As he focused on this thing, a bull elk let out a loud bugle which broke this thing's concentration. This thing snapped its head back towards the elk and took off after them. As it started to climb up the ridge across from my dad, it stopped one last time, stood up, looked at my dad, snarled, and then ran up over the crest of the ridge on two legs. My dad gathered his gear and ran back to his truck as fast as he could and took off out of there. I looked at my dad and asked him what did he think it was. He looked at us dead in the eyes and said, "A werewolf." That's what it was. He said it was the blackest black he had ever seen. Its eyes were yellowish but looked reddish at times. My dad, to the day that he died in 2014, believed he encountered a werewolf. Thank you all for listening until the end. I truly appreciate each and every one of you for being here today. I would just like to add that I disagree with John Bendernigel's description of Sasquatch as great apes. I personally believe they are more human than apes, and even the two witnesses claimed that the Sasquatch looked more human than an ape. Anyways, let's go on to thank the current OC channel members. I would like to thank Elizabeth, Jim, and Teresa for their support. Just let me add that if you want to learn more about the membership program, please check out the membership video, which I've linked above. And if you haven't already, don't forget to hit that like button, the subscribe button, and hit that notification bell so you'll never miss another episode. And if you have an encounter of your own and you would love to share it, I would love to hear it. Please send it to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com and it could be featured in a future episode. Now, lastly, I would just like to wish you all a fantastic week ahead and be sure to tune in next week for another exciting episode on Ontario Cryptids.